T.B.Photo X1.5TFX, and welcome back to another video. Well, today we're gonna do the first part in this little, what you would say, photography tutorial, or rather tutorial, just me mucking around with some flash gear. But I thought that I need a little bit of a narration for this. It's a little bit strange here because I was gonna do a little bit of different things here. I had some ideas, you know, what should I do? Should I do some portraiture and so on, or whatever? But then I actually looked in a book, actually, that is about one of my favorite photographers, or rather, that's not really the entire truth. I went into Swedish public television, SVT, yeah. They have an open archive with all of their older programs, so you can watch them at your own leisure online. So I actually found a old program from the 90s, I believe it was, that is called, I think it's still in the running, but this was an old one. The World of Science, Vetenskapens värld in Swedish. And this one was actually a 3-part series about one of my favorite photographers, unfortunately no longer with us, Lennart Nilsson. He is a pioneer close-up photographer that made a name for himself in the 1960s for the Life magazine report on the beginning of life, or how embryos, or rather from, you know, conception to birth, how a child is developing in the womb. So that was really, I think, even the Life magazine report that Lennart Nilsson did even influenced Stanley Kubrick, of all people, to change the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey, in which Dave is turned into a star child. But anyway, if you have ever seen any of Nilsson's images, they are some of the most incredible images of close-up photography you will ever encounter in the world. I mean, this guy was the undisputed master of extreme close-up. I mean, this is the guy who made you know, manufacturers like Zeiss and Stoltz make customized endoscopes for him that could give him basically a focal length of 2 millimeters, and he could basically have such a wide angle as 160 degrees of field of view in liquid. So that, you know, if you think it is very innovative that Venus Optic Laue, you know, lens, you know, that one, think again, this guy did it in the 70s and 80s. So he was actually also, I think, one of the first people who photographed the HIV virus. But enough of that. Well, this was the inspiration for me then to this little photographic series of close-up and flash photography. So taking some inspiration from both Lennart Nilsson and also Nikon ambassador Joe McNally, National Geographic also, I thought about we're going to use the Nikon Creative Lighting System, or CLS for short, and the main piece of gear will be then the SB800 that can be used in a commander mode to you know, be able to control 3 different flash groups. So you have group A, group B, and group C, and you can use them from the flash. You can use them in different modes. You can use them either in a ITTL, intelligent TTL mode, and you can also use them in manual mode and some other automatic modes that the flash will, from their vantage point in the scene, calculate a flash output on their own, or together with the master control unit. Excuse me. I've started to read a little bit in the book about flash photography published by Joe McNally, where he talks about the creative lighting system, or really basically writes about it. What he shows is that the system works in the following manner, that the camera and flash will work together in that when you use the CLS system, you will get a pre-flash from every single one of the flashes that you have, yeah, and the camera will record the pre-flash from each and every one of the remote flashes, and from that the camera will, together with a optional on-camera control unit like the SB800, it will calculate the output needed from each individual flash depending on how the master unit is programmed. So if you want one flash to be okay, for instance, flash A will give this type of scene and we need this much power output from it, but the SB800 is said that group A has to have a negative exposure value of 2/3 of a stop, while group B needs to be more powerful and is set to plus 1 stop of light. That will be calculated automatically, and when the actual image is taken by the camera, the SB800 will basically strobe out Morse code to each of the flash units and tell them what output they need to do, and that we do the exposure now. And also this will be calculated together with the TTL metering in the camera. So it's a fairly complex system, but it works brilliantly. It really is very intuitive to use when you just, after some, you just need a couple of hours to fiddle with it, and you might get a fairly good understanding in what it's all about. But anyway, let's go on, shall we, with the the subject of choice for this one. Well, we're gonna do a little bit of a just basic overview first of this flash system, but then I thought we will do crystals. Crystals are something that I really think is very interesting to photograph. Most of the ones that I have here are quartz based, I believe. I'm not any way, shape or form an expert in geology or anything like that, but I think that crystal structures has always been fairly fascinating. Anything from table salt to gemstones. But basically, for instance, here we have something that was called a radio crystal. These were used in crystal receivers back in the day, before transistors, in order to get a radio signal, which is kind of interesting in my opinion. Some of them are fool's gold and so on. And things like this, when you have a clear crystal that doesn't have any color to it at all, how do you get a cool exposure? How do you photograph something like this in a interesting manner so that you get the full scope of its structure? Well, we're gonna do a little bit of experimentation with that as well, and we'll see how we can go with it. But I think this is all for me in this segment, and yeah, we'll set up a little bit of a tabletop setup, anyway, and see what we get. So yeah, we'll start to see what we can do. Okay, so here we are now at our first little setup, and we're gonna depart right away from the intended programming, because I thought we will do a little bit of a setup here for how to show you what it can be used in a still life type of deal. So I've just done a little bit of a easy tabletop setup here, so that you can see a little bit what we have to work with. I'm thinking I might just do a camera point of view here as well. Let's see here now. Yeah, I can't really use f/60, so I'm just gonna dial in a fairly good exposure now on the D7200 to see what I can do. Keep in mind I need to redo this later. But the thing being is that I think that will be good enough. So what you can see is that we have here now the setup. We have the Lennart Nilsson book that I talked about earlier, and then I have my top hat, a couple of white cotton gloves, and a cane. But also then I have the 3 Nikon SB600 scattered around this location. First we have the A one that is on the edge of the table over there. It is pointed towards the side to illuminate the hat, the gloves and the cane a little bit. Then behind the book I've actually hidden the B1. It is set to 24mm, so a fairly wide angle, but it's set here to be a bit hidden from the camera view, so it will give a nice illumination of the book cover, or rather that's the intended thought. And lastly we have the C group that is up here on the stand with a diffuser on it, and that's for giving you a little bit of a general illumination of the tabletop. So this is also put on a wide angle setting. The one there, the A group, is fairly much of a zoomed in. I think that's on 85. So that's basically it. But I thought we will take a couple of images. Let's stop the recording on this one and go over to normal operation and so on. It was on 60 f16. And we can do it like so. The thing with flash is that now I have this scene illuminated with some spotlights and so on, so I have constant light in the situation, but I want to eliminate that when I take the image. So how do we do that? Well, fortunately for us, when you're using flash photography, you can do a little light manipulation with the shutter speed of the camera when you're using slow sync flash, as it's called, which is a shutter speed that is lower than the max sync speed of the camera. For my instance, the D7200 has a maximum native maximum shutter sync speed of 1/250th of a second. But there are ways that you can use with high sync flash, where you can go up to 1/8000th of a second, but then you need special flash units that can actually pulse with the way the shutter is operating, so you get a complete exposure. If you would just increase the maximum shutter speed beyond 1/250th, you will get a band in the image with just that part is exposed. But anyway, so you can use a little bit of shutter speed to manipulate the ambient light in the scene, but you can also use the aperture. So if you want great depth of field, flash is very good for you, because then you can use flash and aperture to control how much of the ambient light you want in the scene as well. So here I actually have the camera set on f16 at 1/250th of a second. So, not me tripping in the wires here, I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick check to see that, well, yeah, I have pulled focus on the top hat, and I got a little bit of the Mercedes frame as well, the car itself. But I think this will be the good one, and now I have set I've set the speed light to that the M, which is this unit itself, will not contribute to the image. The A, which is also turned off, B is also turned off. The only thing we're going to see in this first exposure is the C group, which is the ambient overall. So yeah, let's see here now. Yeah, that's in focus. We can turn off the autofocus motor and just take an image here. So I also get a audio beep from the speed light that it has recharged. And yeah, you can see here we have a fairly good image right off the bat. I'm using currently the Sigma 10 to 20mm 3.5 as a wide angle, because I want that little bit of a barrel distortion and so on this, so I really enjoy it with the wide angle photography that I'm currently using. But now we have the baseline, and we can go into the manual with pressing the set button, scroll down to A and turn it to TTL and 0.0 in compensation. So yeah, just gonna confirm, and we take an image. Now that will flash as well. Okay, yeah, we still have Now we actually got some more of what I wanted. Now we have the gloves are good illuminated, and the top hat as well has a good rim light to it on the side that the flash is on. So let's continue, shall we, and turn on the B mode as well, the number B, or the B flash that is hidden from view behind the top hat. So let's see again, f16, 1/250th of a second, and here we go. Yes, now we have a very good illumination in the image from all the three flashes. And now comes the fun part of this. We can start to experiment with the compensatory settings on it. So, for instance, I want a little bit stronger of a flash on the top hat and so on. So I will dial in a plus 2/3 of a stop on it with the Nikon, the SB800, and at the same time I see that the book is a little bit, you get a white of the extreme right of the book cover, so I'll try to just minus 1/3 of a stop and see what that gives us. This is a little bit of the interesting factors of playing with flash. C is going to be unchanged. Let's see. Yeah, we get a little bit of a... Yes, this is more what I thought about getting. But now we can also do as such as the C one, I think is good for what it is. The B one, on the other hand, I want to do a little bit more creative with. So I'm going to turn that down like so, and put it so it's at a lower angle, and might even try to zoom in a little bit to 35 might be good. See here, so let's just have a look that it is not in the image. It's not. Now let's see what that gives us. Now I have lowered the flash and put it in a little bit of a more upwards angle, not straight but more of an angle. So let's see. There we go. Now we have a more evenly illuminated book cover by flash as well. So I think that's a little bit of what we can do with this system. It's really fun to use, but now let's go crazy. Let's turn over the C mode to manual and put it on half power. And there we go. And let's keep the A at plus 1/3, and A is plus 2/3 and B is minus 1/3. So let's see here now what we get. Yes, we got a lot darker image because of the distance and the diffuser put on the C flash. So let's see what we can do here. So that was half power. So let's try to put it up on full power, but we're going to do another thing as well. If I would remove the filter on it and just do another exposure. Okay, now we got a very interesting effect because of the angle down, and that we're now not diffusing the flash up here. We get a much more circular background on the wall actually than when we got with the diffuser, because the diffuser helps to spread the light and we get much even distribution of it. So yeah, I think these are a little bit of an introduction to the CSL system, or CLS system. Too much Mercedes. But anyway, creative lighting system. So I think this is the first image that we are gonna have some experimentation with. And let's go on, shall we, now to the main event. So yeah. Okay, so now I've actually changed the setting a little bit. Now I have built up this little platform using a plain sheet of glass and some cheap IKEA water glasses, and this black paper that you can get in any type of craft store, and a little bit propped up with a middle can with a little bit of the Handyman special duct tape. So now I've actually switched from the 10 to 20 to the Sigma 28mm f1.8 DG. So yeah, now I'm gonna try to do a little bit of a exposure on this crystal here on the glass plate. So let's see what we can do, shall we? I'm gonna begin with the C, the ambient one, and now I'm actually gonna zoom in this to all the way to 85mm, which is the maximum zoom range of this the SB600. So I want to do a side illumination on this crystal first. Let's see, so I get a little bit of photogenic side like so. So I get a lot of angles, and I want a little bit of reflections in it. So, and yeah, for all you for the know, I'm using matrix metering as well on the camera, and auto. What is it called? Yeah, auto white balance as well. But apart from that, ISO 100, and I'm gonna actually now go up to f20 on the f-stop. So let's see what we can do here. See, turn back to autofocus. There we go. I think I need to do a vertical one here because I just want the parts that are in the black. So let's see what we can do. Okay, yeah, here is a little bit of a fail on my part. I put it's still on manual flash from the last experiment we did, so I'm gonna turn it back to TTL, and let's see what we can do. I maybe need to get a microfiber cloth also. Let's get a little bit lower, shall we? Okay, we are getting something here now. We get a very well exposed crystal, but it's a little bit boring now. First of all, I think that everything is a little bit too far away from me, so I think that I'm actually gonna change it. It's very good. Let's see here if we can get it as close as possible. Let's see what we can do. There we go. Put the subject a little bit closer. Let's see what we can do. Okay, now we're starting to get a little bit, but still I think that this one is a little bit flat because we have a clear crystal that we're working with. It means that we get probably majority is just gonna be white, however we do it. So going back to Lennart Nilsson, who I've talked about, and when he photographed the egg being fertilized, he used a special microscope with some grid filters and so on to get the desired effect. So I think we can do something similar to that. So be with you in a second and I'll show you what we can do. Okay, so now we have actually gone way up in the aspect of different gear. First of all, I have put on now 3 SB600s. So you have the A, the B, and the C. So in that order. First of all, we have the A one, which is basically now the one that's going to give a soft light over everything. It has a red filter on it, so that and a silver umbrella, so you will get the reflection here, and a lot of the background will become a bit red in a red cast. Then here we have a SB600 that has a snoot on it, and on the snoot we have a grid filter on which I have taped with the Handyman Special duct tape a green filter. These are just all the color filter that I had laying around and I'm not really using. And thirdly, we have the C1, which is another SP600 with another grid filter taped on it, and then on a little soldering station I have a blue filter, so RGB. So we have basically the three filters that are used in, you know, color correction and so on. So I can now actually change the ratio between them. So for the time being, the A1, which is the red, is put at plus 1/3 of a stop. We are using TTL on this one. The B1 is minus 2/3, 0.7 that is, and the C1 is minus 1/3. So the strongest one in this scene will be the red flash, but that's also because that's the one that will be the widest and most diffused because of the setup that I'm having right now. I want it to be very soft and very spread out. So that's the reason for that position. So let's see what we can do here, shall we? I'm using now f11 at 1/250th of a second and ISO 100. So see what we can do. And I'm still using the Sigma 28mm. See what we can do. Okay, so we are getting some interesting results. The setup as such, but I want to be able to get a bit lower and get a bit narrower on this. So what I'm gonna do is actually change the lens to a little bit more to telephoto. So I think we're gonna go up to the 60mm Nikon to see what that will give you for the, you know, what the change will be, because as you know, the higher the focal distance zoom range or zoom distance of the millimeter basically on the lens, the narrower the field of view. So we'll see what we can do with that one. So yeah. Okay, so now I've changed to the AF Micro Nikkor 60mm 2.8D. Keep in mind on the D7200 this becomes the equivalent of a 90mm focal length. So we are into telephoto territory now, and let's see what we can do. Oh yeah, this one I can really more isolate the subject, and we'll see now what we can do. Oh yes, I think we now are into a little bit more what I wanted to begin with. We have much more color changes in this. As you remember, we started out with this subject with a completely white flash unit, or rather a flash unit with no modification at all, and we got a fairly boring image then with just a white stone, and we got very little detail. But when we are breaking down color in this aspect, we really get a better appreciation for the three-dimensionalness of this little stone, so to speak. Let's see if we can do one more. I changed the angle of the stone now, so let's see what we can do if we go in like so. With the entire plate in the image. There we go. And I think I'm gonna go f14 for this one, since the closer you get to the subject, the narrower the depth of field it will become. That's basically the nature of close-up photography. Very interesting. We are starting to see a little bit of the pores of the stone itself, so we really get close to it. So I think what we're gonna do now, just to experiment, is that I'm gonna change the lenses again and go up to the 105mm Sigma lens and see what we get with that one. So we have this setup completely the same. I haven't touched any of the flash flash settings, but I've now added the Sigma 105mm to 8 and we'll see what that can give us. Now I think I can even... Okay, with this lens now I am close enough, or I have a narrow enough angle of view, or yeah, angle, that I can actually, I don't need to put it horizontal anymore. I can put it back to, you know, not vertical, I can put it horizontal. So let's see what we can do. Let's see here. Okay, now we are getting so close that the red is no longer giving me the desired effect, so I think I need to do a little bit of differentiating on that one as well. So yeah, there we go. So now we have the red, green, blue. And maybe I need to do something a little bit like this, since now we're really going to get into close-up. So let's see if we do something like this. There is a little bit of trial and error in this, so that's a little bit of the fun part with this experimentation. So now we know, we can say that these two have grid filters on it, but the red one has nothing. Let's see, something like that. So yeah, here we go. I suspect that this image will be quite strong in the red, because keep in mind I haven't changed the settings on the SB800. So we will get the same type of ratio between the three flashes. Oh, as I suspected, the red is really taking over as an insane amount. But here's the thing, with different colors, you have different, what you would say, color temperatures, and the intensity of that what should we say, that color. So if I then turn down the red and I go a full stop down, and I basically move everything up 1/3 of a stop, let's see what we get now. Oh yes, there we go. Now we have a better, what you would say, ratio between the three colors and so on in this stone. Let's turn the stone a little bit to get a different angle of it. And actually now I think I'm gonna do a vertical, because I want the reflection in the glass plate as well. Let's see here. Let's compose it so that... Okay, here we go. I think we nailed it with that one. Now we really have the shot that I was after, that I saw in my head. We now have a beautiful shot of the crystal itself with the reflection in the table, and also with it we have a, what you would say, when we zoom in and look at it, we can see the imperfections in the crystal, the cracks and the angles of it, because since we have basically the RBG spectrum now in this configuration, you can see that the different angles are, you know, showing much more interestingly in the image. So what should we do now? I'm gonna go up now to the maximum depth of field that I can get with this lens, which is f32, and see if the flashes can handle it. Keep in mind we need to have it so that the power output can still be matched. So here we go. Oh yes, we can still do it, and the reason is because we have enough power in the flashes, because with every 3 steps in f-stop we're basically halving the light, and we were at let's see here, we were at 16, so yeah, it's basically we're basically going 1.5 or almost 2 stops of less light, but still these guys did the trick no problem at all. So yeah, I think that will be all for this segment, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one, so take care from now on. Bye. Okay, I actually found this while I thought I was gonna pack up for the day, and I found this little family heirloom. It's a name seal, a stamp that is, that was used before when sending letters and so on, you would use it. But anyway, I thought, why not? Because it has a very interesting triangular shape, and I know this is made out of crystal as well. So I thought, like, why don't I just try the setup to just show you the magic of what you can do with the flash and so on, and with color. So why don't we just start with it as is. I'm still using the 105mm, and we have all the settings as they were, and I'm gonna do it at f20 on this one, and let's see what we get. And keep in mind, now I don't have any color filters on. Okay, we get the stamp itself, but as you can see here, we lose all types of definition with it. We don't get any depth we don't feel any depth in it. So let's just then tape on the colors. So we have the red one going from the top, the green one on the grid filter as such, and finally the stand with the blue filter. Let's see. Let's see what we get. Let's just try and remove it like so. We'll do another one at another angle of these. And directly we get something very different. We get away from the basically what feels like a non-three-dimensional object to something that directly feels more three-dimensional. Let's see if we can do something that we have one towards each as such, and a little bit from a upwards position like so. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, this. As you can see yourself, it becomes quite different depending on how you do it. So yeah, let's see, we'll put that a little closer. And this one a little bit more like so. This one can probably be a little bit more like that. We can get it a little bit in, a little bit down. Yeah, some tiny adjustments. And see what that gives us. Let's go crazy and just go into the crown of the stamp. Okay, some post work in that one, and would probably be an interesting. Let's do the entire thing as well. Or rather, interesting. But anyway, I think that will be the little bit of the bonus feature on this one. So as always, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X1.5 TFX, And I'd like to see you guys in the next video. And as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. So take care from now on. Bye.